A $7.5 million pension payout, Phil Mickelson demanding money he supposedly earned, and Brian Rolapp accused of blocking the payment out of pure spite. That sounds like a PGA Tour bombshell capable of shaking every locker room in professional golf. There is only one serious problem. No credible report currently confirms that Mickelson requested this specific payout. That $7.5 million represents his actual retirement balance, or that Rolapp personally stopped anything. Those details remain allegations, not established facts. However, the story feels believable because the hostility between Mickelson and the PGA Tour is real. Phil spent decades helping build the tour before joining LIV Golf, while Rolapp now controls an organization determined to protect loyal members and define consequences for defectors. If Mickelson's retirement money has become trapped inside that war, players deserve answers. Until documents emerge, though, outrage cannot replace evidence. Before we examine this apparent scandal, hit the like button, subscribe, and tell us whether the PGA Tour should ever restrict retirement benefits accumulated by a player during his career. The first point fans must understand is that the PGA Tour retirement program does not operate like a normal company pension. Tour professionals are independent contractors rather than traditional salaried employees. They do not automatically receive identical retirement checks after completing a fixed number of working years. The tour's system has historically rewarded players through different mechanisms, including cuts made, season performance, and deferred FedEx Cup compensation. That structure allows individual balances to grow across lengthy careers. A golfer who repeatedly makes cuts and finishes high in the standings can accumulate substantial retirement benefits. Somebody with Mickelson's extraordinary record would naturally be expected to possess one of the larger accounts developed through that system. Phil won 45 PGA Tour events. He captured 6 major championships, competed successfully for more than 3 decades, and became one of the greatest commercial attractions the sport has produced. His presence sold tickets, strengthened television broadcasts, generated sponsorship value, and delivered countless unforgettable moments. He did not spend several forgettable seasons on tour before demanding an undeserved favor. Mickelson helped create the product from which the modern PGA Tour continues benefiting. That reality makes any suggestion that officials could simply seize his retirement money emotionally explosive, especially among fans who believe the organization has tried to damage his reputation since he joined LIV Golf. Emotion, however, cannot establish what occurred. The circulating $7.5 million figure has not been supported publicly by a pension statement, legal filing, tour announcement, or confirmed comment from Mickelson. Retirement balances normally remain private financial information. Unless Phil releases documentation or the tour specifically addresses his account, outsiders cannot responsibly declare the amount he is owed. The same evidentiary problem surrounds Rolapp's alleged involvement. Rolapp became the PGA Tour's chief executive after Mickelson's relationship with the organization had already collapsed. Phil's suspension began under previous leadership following his involvement with LIV Golf and participation in events that the tour had not authorized. No reliable evidence currently demonstrates that he reviewed Mickelson's retirement file, rejected a distribution request, or instructed administrators to withhold $7.5 million. More importantly, nothing establishes spite as his motive. Spite means personal retaliation instead of ordinary enforcement of established rules. Proving that accusation would require internal communications, documents, testimony, or a remarkably honest confession from somebody involved in the decision. Nothing like that has surfaced. That does not make questions surrounding Mickelson's benefits irrelevant. It means those questions must become more precise. The central issue is whether suspension, LIV participation, loss of membership, or continued professional competition affects when a former PGA Tour player may access retirement funds accumulated before the dispute. Historically, former tour players could receive components of deferred retirement compensation after reaching certain ages and leaving active competition on the PGA Tour or PGA Tour champions. Different portions of the program could follow different eligibility conditions, or payment schedules. That distinction matters because Mickelson continues competing professionally for LIV Golf. Leaving the PGA Tour is not necessarily identical to retiring from golf. If the governing plan defines retirement, active status, or eligibility in a particular manner, administrators could delay a distribution without permanently confiscating the underlying balance. A delay might infuriate Phil. It would not automatically prove theft. There is an enormous difference between money being permanently blocked, temporarily unavailable, and scheduled for distribution after specific conditions are satisfied. Sensational headlines frequently collapse those three possibilities into one accusation. Fans deserve to know which situation applies here. Mickelson's separation from the PGA Tour involved public criticism, secret negotiations surrounding LIV Golf, suspension, litigation, and allegations from both directions. Phil became the loudest symbol of a rival league, threatening the tour's established business model. He accused the organization of controlling player media rights and failing to unlock the commercial value generated by its biggest stars. Tour defenders answered that Mickelson had benefited enormously from the same structure he later attacked. Then Levy arrived with guaranteed fortunes. Mickelson joined the breakaway league in 2022 and became its most controversial acquisition. His decision was not treated like an aging veteran quietly accepting one final overseas opportunity. It represented open rebellion against the PGA Tour. The tour suspended members who competed in LIV tournaments without permission. Mickelson also became involved in litigation challenging those restrictions before eventually withdrawing from the lawsuit. Every development deepened the hostility. Tour loyalists believed Phil abandoned the organization that helped make him rich and famous. Mickelson's supporters believed the tour punished a player who exposed its weaknesses and demanded greater power for professionals. Both camps built moral arguments around enormous amounts of money. That history explains why many fans could believe Rolapp would target Mickelson's pension, even without evidence. Their relationship appears so poisoned that ordinary administrative silence can seem suspicious before anyone examines the actual regulations. Retirement benefits, however, are different from future incentives. A temporary restriction from new equity programs may be a penalty connected to restored membership. Money accumulated during decades of previous competition raises a separate issue. If those benefits became vested under the retirement plan, withholding them merely to punish criticism or LIV participation could cause serious legal and ethical problems. The critical word is vested. Vested compensation generally represents an enforceable right once a participant has met the required conditions. Exact rights still depend upon plan documents, amendments, eligibility provisions, distribution rules, and applicable law. Nobody can settle Mickelson's supposed dispute merely by shouting that he earned everything or betrayed everyone. The written terms matter. If Phil's balance is fully vested and currently distributable, Rolapp should not be able to invent a personal punishment. If the program legally delays payment while Mickelson remains active, suspended, or otherwise ineligible, describing that decision as revenge would misrepresent the situation. Transparency could eliminate much of the speculation. The tour would not need to reveal Mickelson's private balance. It could explain whether LIV golfers retain vested benefits, which conditions govern distributions, and whether suspended former members receive treatment different from players who retire normally. Mickelson could clarify whether he submitted a claim, what answer he received, and where the widely repeated $7.5 million number originated. Now, suppose the allegation is accurate. Imagine Mickelson formally requesting $7.5 million in compensation accumulated during his PGA Tour career. Imagine administrators determined that he had satisfied every written requirement. Then imagine Rolapp intervened specifically because Phil criticized the organization and joined LIV Golf. That would represent an extraordinary abuse of authority. A retirement program cannot become an executive revenge account. Tour leadership would be converting earned compensation into political leverage, warning every golfer that money accumulated today could be threatened if he challenged management tomorrow. Current players would immediately demand protection. Rory McIlroy, Scottie Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, and other influential members might strongly oppose Mickelson's LIV decision, while still rejecting arbitrary interference with retirement accounts. Players understand that relationships with executives can change suddenly. A celebrated star may eventually become a critic. A loyal member may challenge a controversial policy. Nobody wants decades of accumulated benefits to depend on whether a future chief executive personally likes him. Sponsors might also become uncomfortable. The PGA Tour presents itself as a player-centered membership organization. Using vested retirement funds as punishment would undermine that identity and invite scrutiny from lawyers, regulators, commercial partners, and every professional reviewing his account. Phil would possess a devastating argument. He could say the tour profited from his performances, promoted his image, celebrated his victories, and then withheld earned compensation after he created competition for the organization. Mickelson has always understood how to transform private frustration into public pressure. A documented pension rejection could become considerably more damaging to Rolapp than another disagreement regarding LIV contracts. The principle would matter more than the amount. Mickelson has earned hundreds of millions through tournament winnings, sponsorship agreements, business ventures, and his LIV contract. Losing this alleged payment would not leave him struggling to survive. Still, Phil could afford a prolonged legal fight better than an ordinary former player. That makes him exactly the wrong person to test with a questionable denial. His lawyers could demand governing documents, eligibility decisions, internal messages, and records indicating whether comparable suspended golfers received different treatment. Any communication suggesting personal hostility could convert a contractual disagreement into a reputational disaster. Rolapp would face one brutal question. Did the tour apply an existing policy or secretly create a Phil Mickelson policy? That distinction would define the scandal. Now, consider the opposite possibility. Suppose Mickelson never requested this specific payout. Suppose $7.5 million is simply an invented estimate. Suppose Rolapp never examined the account, while routine retirement rules prevent immediate distribution because Phil continues playing professionally elsewhere. The most responsible assessment today is that Mickelson probably accumulated substantial retirement benefits during his PGA Tour career, but neither a requested $7.5 million payout nor Rolapp's supposed personal blockade has been independently verified. The underlying conflict remains real, even if the claimed transaction is fictional. Phil symbolizes the players who challenged the tour's authority. Rolapp represents an institution attempting to regain stability after LIV Golf destroyed its previous structure. Their interests collide over membership, eligibility, reputation, compensation, and the conditions under which defectors could return. Retirement money fits naturally inside that confrontation because it connects past loyalty with present rebellion. Did Mickelson accumulate benefits during decades as one of the PGA Tour's greatest stars? Clearly, he received whatever rights the governing program awarded him. Did joining LIV eliminate those rights? Only the official terms can answer. Should he receive immediate payment while competing for a rival league? Once again, the written distribution conditions must decide. Could Rolapp legally punish Mickelson out of personal spite? He should not possess that power, and no current evidence confirms that he used it. Those distinctions sound less dramatic than a blocked multi-million-dollar check, yet they expose a more important issue. The PGA Tour retirement program depends upon trust. Professionals defer compensation because they expect the organization to honor its commitments later. If political loyalty can change those commitments, confidence in the entire arrangement becomes unstable. Rolapp should welcome clarification. If the allegation is false, a straightforward policy explanation would protect him. If Mickelson retains benefits that become distributable later, the tour can state that without revealing his private financial information. If an authentic dispute exists, neutral review would be more credible than secret executive intervention. Silence permits the harshest interpretation to spread. Mickelson also carries responsibility. He has developed considerable influence by challenging tour leadership, but precise allegations require precise evidence. If Phil believes officials wrongfully withheld his money, he can disclose the decision, identify the disputed provision, and explain why he met every condition. His supporters would respond immediately. Other LIV golfers would examine their accounts. Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed, Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, and additional former PGA Tour members could question whether similar restrictions affect their accumulated benefits. One documented case could reveal a system-wide conflict. That possibility means the tour should not dismiss retirement questions merely because this particular allegation lacks confirmation. The policy affects every player who moved to LIV and anyone considering a future opportunity outside the tour. A clear and consistently enforced rule protects everyone. The organization must distinguish accumulated compensation from financial opportunities linked to future membership. It must separate normal eligibility decisions from personal punishment. It must apply identical terms whether the participant is a quiet journeyman or the most provocative golfer of his generation. Phil should receive exactly what the plan legally promises. He deserves nothing extra because he is famous. But he should lose nothing because executives dislike him. Rolapp's leadership will be measured through controversies like this. He was hired to modernize the PGA Tour, strengthen its commercial position, improve its competitive product, and navigate golf's continuing division. He was not hired to settle old scores. If personal hostility ever influences retirement decisions, Rolapp will deepen the crisis he inherited. If he enforces established provisions fairly and explains the policy clearly, accusations of revenge should eventually collapse. That choice appears simple. Professional golf rarely allows simplicity. Every regulation now carries LIV's shadow. Every payment seems political. Every exemption creates allegations of favoritism. Every punishment generates another debate about loyalty. Mickelson contributed to that atmosphere, but the tour strengthened it through secrecy and inconsistent communication. Trust will return only when evidence arrives before outrage. Currently, no confirmed $7.5 million check is sitting on Rolapp's desk. No verified rejection carries his signature. No reliable evidence proves he personally blocked Mickelson's pension because of spite. There is only an explosive allegation spreading inside an unbelievably bitter war. Fans should not ignore the underlying issue. They should demand clear retirement policies, recognize the difference between vested benefits and future bonuses, and watch for statements from Mickelson or PGA Tour officials. If documents eventually confirm the allegation, Rolapp will face a legitimate bombshell. He must explain why decades of accumulated player compensation became another weapon in the LIV conflict. If the records reveal a routine eligibility delay, the accusation should be corrected as loudly as it was promoted. Phil Mickelson's PGA Tour legacy cannot be erased by one executive. His victories remain permanent. His popularity transformed tournaments. His career helped enrich the organization long before their relationship collapsed. The tour also possesses the right to enforce legitimate rules governing every participant. The answer must come from those rules, not sympathy for Mickelson or hostility toward Rolapp. Golf fans, what is your verdict? Should Phil receive every vested dollar immediately despite competing outside the PGA Tour, or may the organization legally delay distribution until he satisfies its retirement requirements? If Rolapp truly blocked earned benefits for personal reasons, should current stars demand his removal? Share your opinion in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more PGA Tour drama. This alleged $7.5 million pension blockade remains unverified. But one thing is clear. If Brian Rolapp ever allows spite to control money Phil Mickelson legally earned, the backlash could make golf's existing civil war resemble a friendly practice round.